and welcome back to my storytelling YouTube channel. This is chapter 4 and final chapter of my star-crossed lover with Xiomara and Callen. I hope that you are doing well, and guess what? It's the month of Turkey. Can you believe November is already here? I feel like this year has gone by super fast and in a blink of an eye. We are already a month away from the new year. I hope that you celebrate yourself as well as celebrating the new month. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you will enjoy this last chapter.
I'm hoping what I said could make you change your mind, though it doesn't really matter when my hands are tied. I'm trying to walk across the bridges that I've burned. My only way to you is gone, the tide has turned. So give me a light, show me what I need. I know I'm blind, but I hear symphonies of your heartbeat.
Xiomara. If you fight him to the death, he will kill you, I whispered as Callen stood before me. His eyes were holding a light that seemed dull, and the shoulders had sunk. Hearing the words uttered before his lips made me cringe at the thought of losing him to Hamish. If I don't, you and I will never gain our freedom. And you would do that for me. Fight for my freedom. Your freedom to choose me without fear, he said as he walked to me. Do you have any idea what it is like to stand and pretend I don't feel anything for you? When the moment Hamish walks in and his eyes gazes at you, all I want to do is peck his sockets out just because he dared to undress you with his eyes. Do you have any idea how it hurts me to know that your virtue is something I cannot take when you give it to me, but I must endure when someone else can do it freely? I have never been afraid of anything. I have seen it all. I have seen the crows peck out the eyes of my brothers while their bodies lay decaying in the sand. I have seen the woman they loved being sold like animals to another, and I have watched their lineage break as the children they bore were murdered. I've seen it all. But what I could not see was falling in love with you. He took me into his arms and held me, his hands caressing my curves as he inhaled my scent. I never saw how I would lose my heart to a woman like you, someone I could not touch or have. I never stopped to think I would be in this position. I felt his strong muscles beneath my hands, and I let out a soft cry. But I cannot bear to lose you should Hamish take you away from me. He pulled away and cupped my chin. I will never lose to him, not when my winning has everything to do with having you. Do you promise me? I asked with a sinking heart. With everything I hold dear. Now go on. Go on, and I'll talk to you in the morning light. He bent down and captured my lips once before I stepped away from him and walked to the cell where I was now living with Ileana and Tiana. The Senate had stripped my father of his title as king and was now busy moving everything out of the palace hall to the ludus where the gladiators lived. For the time being, the palace would house my parents, but the title would no longer be theirs to hold. As soon as the duel with Hamish and Callen was over, the Senate would be moving in, and we would be without a home. My father would lose the ludus and everything to the Senate. As I entered my cell, I found my mother waiting for me and my two maids absent. For the past few days, my mother's figure had lost weight, and she stopped wearing the bright, colorful clothes. She had downgraded to a simple brown that made her cheeks lose color. Mother, what brings you here? I asked. Your father has lost sleep the last few nights and has been quite temperamental. I was wandering the ludus when I saw you and Callen together. My cheeks blushed. Mother, have your eyes also become a dagger into my life? Your life has become a story well known to the many who roam this ludus. Do you see the absence of leadership in your own father? It is because of your brazen ways. You have clearly stated that you will bow down to no one when it comes to your heart. I let out a heavy breath and shrugged. And love, does it not take courage to chase after? Or am I to live forever in this ludus and remain a spinster as you and father line your pockets heavy with coin from the death of others? She smiled. You will always see your father and I as such, won't you? Two people who wish to see the sand covered in the blood of gladiators. Do you realize the situation we are in, daughter? The Senate is seeking to replace your father on the throne, and we will be absent of a home soon. The worry that should make your brows frown should be that. Instead, you worry about your gladiator's blood spilling across the sand. Hamish will lose, and you will suffer for it. Then so be it, I said. Callen is a man. He is a slave, my mother shouted. Born from the body of a slave in the muds of the lowest of terrains. What right does he have to cloak his body with the virginal blood of my daughter? His demand in life is to die by the blade that another points at him by the sound of applause. He cannot rewrite his story otherwise, and neither should you. I will not allow it. I walked to her and smiled. Mother, it is rather late to be talking and rewriting stories. Callen is going to win against Hamish, and I will earn my right to walk away with him to love him as I should. The words are decreed by my father and cannot be taken back. My mother shook her head. If Callen wins, Hamish will make sure the ludus is buried beneath the sand, and your father and I with it. My heart stopped for a moment, and I frowned. What do you speak of? Hamish will never let Callen win so easily. He will do everything in his power to win. If you do not tell him to lose, this entire ludus will be swallowed by the ground should he claim victory. I shook my head in disgust. Lord Hamish is a coward, and so is my father for choosing to let this play out this way. I will never let Callen lose just so favor can be gained by the hand of the enemy. Even if that enemy is your father? My mother asked. Especially if it is my father. He will never allow me to love or live freely unless I support Callen to win. If we have to fight to the death, we will. Then what good is love if you are absent of a heartbeat? Callen, I knew that this would be the ultimate test to gaining freedom for me, but I never thought it would involve her as well. Hamish's men had surrounded the ludus, forbidding the king to allow us to train, and we were trapped inside our cells. Food and water were given twice a day, and the rest of the time we were staring at the concrete walls. Without proper training, Hamish had hoped he would beat me. I should hope that lack of training will cause you to give up victory, Cavish said as he joined me. Damon followed him in as they came to sit beside me. No matter what Lord Hamish decides to do, I shall win this from him. It is the only way to claiming what I truly want and desire. And will you leave after? Damon asked. I will go where she goes. What have you known besides blood and sand? Cavish asked. I thought a moment. I know nothing, but I am quite positive that the teaching of it will fall upon me from her gentle ways. A woman like her will love with all of her heart's condition without holding back. I need only open my eyes, and the world will shift. Contentment burns in your eyes, Damon said as he smiled at me. It is rare to see such a sight, especially for slaves like us, and I hope that you achieve what your heart wishes for. The kindness touched me, and I reached over to touch his shoulder. Thank you, Damon. I have forgotten what happiness is like. Since being enslaved here in the ludus, all I have known has been the whip and order. But the gentleness of her has brought around something that tugged at my heart, willing me to see light. When night fell and the ludus grew quiet, I found myself kneeling on the training field, where I had bested countless brothers with sword. The gravel seemed like a stranger to me, and as I looked up at the night sky, I heard feet pattering. I turned and found the king walking toward me. His shoulder was not as proud as it used to be, and I stood up as he neared me. Champion, "What thought robs you of sleep?" he asked. "Thoughts of victory against a man of higher status," I whispered. "My king, what keeps you awake?" He bent down and took a handful of gravel in his hand. "Heritage, Callen. Heritage. All of my life, my father has always said to never lose this ludus. It was his deepest passion that beat in his chest. And yet, as I stand here with you, my champion, I will soon be stripped from ownership of ludus and be branded among the commoners. King no longer shall I ring, and I have never felt more of an impostor as I stand here tonight. For what else can I be if not king of this ludus? My lord, perhaps with this new insight to life, you shall receive a better opportunity to live well." He snickered. "Live well? Better than this?" And then he turned to me and opened his arms. "Come, embrace me, my champion. It is your name that is shouted from the crowd, lining my pockets heavy with coin." As I walked to embrace him, I felt the dagger slid into my rib cage and ripped my flesh apart. I gasped of pain as he held on to me, not letting me go as he deepened the knife. "Apologies, my champion, but I cannot lose this war with you and my daughter. You must fail in order for me to keep my head. Tomorrow you shall fall, but fall a champion on the sand that you have left others to bleed on. Die well, my champion, for tomorrow awaits your entrance to the afterlife." I gasped as he pulled the knife from me, and I fell to the ground. I looked up at him as he started walking away from me, and I felt my vision begin to fade. The knife was poisoned, and I could feel the rush of its venom inside me, coursing through my veins. I would be fighting half dead, and my chance at winning would be slimmed. Pushing myself to stand up, I managed to walk to my cell where I dropped to the ground and used one of the small broken pieces of pottery I kept underneath my bed to cut my vein on my arm. If I could bleed out the venom, I would be able to at least fight off Hamish. "Apologies, Xiomara. Forgive me if I fail you." Xiomara. The morning sun broke through the cell, and I stirred, finding Ileana and Tiana already up and bringing me water to wash. I stretched, and a deep happiness filled me as I realized today Callen would be a free man. I washed up and just finished tying my hair when Cavish burst into my cell, his face pale with fear. "What is it?" I asked. "Milady, you must come with me now." I rushed past him and down the hall to where Callen's cell was and found Damon sitting with a pale and weakened Callen. His arm had been cut, and blood had collected a pile on the ground. His left side had bled profusely through the cotton wrapped around him. I felt my heart sink as I ran to hold him. "What happened?" I asked. "Nothing. It was an accident." "Tell me." He shoved me away. "I'll be fine. You cannot fight injured. I should go to my father and have him call off the duel." "Your father was the one who injured him," Cavish said through clenched teeth. "Cavish, you barbarian," Callen said. I felt my heart collide with heat and anger as I rushed out of the cell and toward the hall where my parents were living. I heard Callen shout out my name, but I was blinded by pain and anger. As I entered their wing, I saw my father sitting, sharpening his dagger. No doubt the dagger that he had used to hurt Callen. "You are an evil man. I thought Hamish was evil, but you have outdone him," I said. He looked up at me. "You should really thank yourself, Xiomara. Had you not fallen in love with my champion, I would have no need to get rid of him. But you had to choose him of all people to love, so you must really turn this hate and anger against yourself." "How could you injure him, knowing he was going to fight today?" I asked as I charged toward him. "You have no heart." "Yes, I have no heart. You asked that of me when you wanted me to dissolve your engagement with Hamish. If anything, you forced my hand." I felt the tears prick my eyes. "You are ungodly, father. No, I am a king, and I shall die a king and never a commoner. A king who has no followers to love him deserves the decaying grave and never the throne." I turned and ran back down the hall to Callen's cell, where he was still sitting where I had left him. I sobbed and fell to his feet. I worry of you. You cannot fight this way. He will take your life, for now you are weakened. Smiling, Callen replied, Then I shall take as much of him as I can. He reached for me and gave me a soft kiss. Do not shed tears for me. I can still win. And if you cannot, I asked, then you shall live well. I sobbed and wrapped my arms around him. I will not let you down, Xiomara. Give me a fighting chance. He pushed me away to kiss me gently. Go on. Go, and I will see you when I walk on the sand below. My heart was hammering against my chest when Hamish arrived, an evil grin on his face. He had his armor on and was sporting a sword in his hand. The moment he saw me, he handed it to his men and came to block my path from leaving. I will make you scream with pleasure in my bed, he said. That thought makes me want to rot in the ground. Laughing, he pulled me to him and squeezed my flesh to the point where I felt pain. When I gut your gladiator and gut him, I will. I want you to look at him taking his last breath of life. He will never protect you like you wish, Princess. In the end, it will always be you and I together. Strike that thought from your mind, Lord Hamish. Today you will be absent of a champion. He shoved me and laughed. Champion will be my name, and your gladiator will be drinking his own piss and blood in the afterlife. He smiled and reached for his sword. Watch me gut him and take his beating chest into my hand. War. I have never been fond of it. I have hated it from the beginning of its birth, and today, as I sat in the high tower for the last time, I would be witnessing a war that I was afraid I would lose. This time, I was afraid that I would be the one who would take the greatest loss. My parents were sitting on the throne, perhaps for the last time, as they gazed at what my grandfather had built. I was not upset with my father. After a moment of pause and thought, I understood why my father did what he did. He fought for this Ludus just as hard as I fought for Callen's love. Between the both of us, we each had a vision the other did not understand. We were at war with each other too, and this was a war I knew would separate our relationship forever. Take a good look, Xiomara, my mother said beside me, for this is the last time you will see this field from this vantage point. Beyond this, and a commoner you shall live. No, I replied, not looking at her. I shall live a freed woman to love who I choose. The sound of the horn was heard, and the crowd grew wild as Callen came onto the field with a sword in hand. The other gate opened, and Hamish entered wearing full armor with a bigger and longer sword. Hamish turned and looked at me, raising his sword up in the air. He lunged toward Callen, and the two men's swords danced across the field, while my heart bled in pain. Callen. My vision was blurring, and I was feeling faint as I ducked the sword that came at me. Hamish had an advantage, and I could feel the blow of his hit today. When I gazed up at the tower, I could see her gentle face with worry. I smiled at her and hoped it would give her some comfort, but I knew it only hid what was the truth that was waiting to surface. I could feel my light beginning to fade. When Hamish slammed his sword against my chest, I coughed and threw up black blood. The poison had reached my organs, and as I raised my sword to shield myself, he pulled out a dagger from inside his pocket and jammed it into my shoulder. I went down on one knee, and he laughed as he twirled his sword. Slave, did you honestly think you would be able to get her? If I cannot have her, no one can have her. She will never be in the arms of you or anyone else, he whispered. He bent down and used his sword to tilt my chin up to look at him. You hear the crowd? They are wild with anticipation that I kill you. How should I dismember you today? As he raised the sword above his head to strike me, a spear came through his chest and blood gurgled through his lips. You will not take the man I love from me, Xiomara cried as she shoved him to the ground. She came to me and pulled me to a standing position. "Are you all right?" "What are you doing here? Why do you take the aim meant for me?" I asked. "I love you, Callen, and I will gladly do it again, even against your wishes." She gave me a gentle kiss, and as I hugged her against me, I felt the sword enter my chest and the blood that exploded from her lips. Hamish was standing behind her and had entered his sword through her back, taking both me and her together. Her eyes fluttered with spasms of pain as Hamish's eyes rolled in the back of his head and he fell over. I reached behind her and pulled the sword out as we freed each other. We fell together on the ground, and I heard her mother's mournful cry as she looked over the railing at us. "This is the end to the war," she said through clenched teeth. "At least I get to be with you, Callen. Focus on me, my beautiful bride, and not the pain you feel. I love you." She smiled and reached up to touch my cheeks. "I have never known love could be so beautiful until you." I felt the poison attack my heart, and my breath quickened, making it hard to steady myself. And you, for all I knew, was blood and sand. I reached for her and pulled her toward me for one last kiss. Thank you for tuning in to my star-crossed lover. I hope that you enjoyed this story. I will see you in the next episode.
I'm hoping what I said could make you change your mind, though it doesn't really matter when my hands are tied. I'm trying to walk across the bridges that I've burned. My only way to you is gone, the tide has turned. So give me a light, show me what I need. I know I'm blind, but I hear symphonies of your heartbeat. Trapped inside, I forgot to look beyond. I see the other side. So give me a light, show me what I need. I know I'm blind, but I hear symphonies of your heartbeat. Now that's an understatement. To walk alone, I guess it's my repayment. Please give me a light, show me what I need. I know I'm blind, but I hear symphonies of your